Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at Palantir Technologies
Okay.
and asking the question, could they really become a trillion-dollar company?
That's a big one.
Yeah, and for this one, we're looking at an article from the Motley Fool.
Right.
It's called, Where Will Palantir Technologies Stock Be in 1 Year? It was published February 9th, 2025. So pretty recently.
Very recent.
And one of the things that really struck me about this article is that even the author, who's a self-proclaimed Palantir bull, is surprised by just how quickly things seem to be moving.
Well, yeah, I mean, the stock has surged just in the past year. It's gone from a $58 billion market cap to over $260 billion.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, that is mind-blowing. And so, I mean, the author initially predicted that Palantir would hit a $1 trillion valuation by 2035. But now it sounds like they're thinking that that timeline might be way too conservative.
Yeah. And that's because, they're being compared to Microsoft in the early days of personal computing.
Yeah. Like, remember how Microsoft basically won the operating system wars with Windows?
Right.
The idea is that Palantir could become equally dominant in the world of AI software.
So the article even goes so far as to call Palantir the Windows of the AI revolution.
A very bold claim.
It is. It's definitely a bold claim. But, I think the author makes a compelling argument that AI is going to completely revolutionize the way that businesses operate.
Absolutely.
Everything from logistics to customer service and even how companies manage personnel.
For sure.
And this isn't just theoretical. Palantir is already seeing massive growth in some key areas, particularly within the U.S. commercial market.
Yeah. And I mean, just look at their most recent earnings report.
Okay.
43% customer growth year over year.
Wow.
36% revenue growth.
Yep.
And then a 63% adjusted free cash flow margin.
Some of those terms, I got to be honest, I don't totally understand.
Sure.
Could you break those down for us a little bit and explain what those figures actually signal about a company's health and future prospects?
Absolutely. So that 43% customer growth year over year basically means that a lot more people want what Palantir's selling.
Okay.
And that jump in revenue, well, that means that they're turning that demand into actual sales.
Gotcha.
But that 63% adjusted free cash flow margin is really the big one. Think of it this way. For every dollar of revenue, Palantir keeps 63 cents as a pure profit. And then that profit can then be plowed back into the company to make it even stronger or paid out to investors.
Okay.
It's a sign that Palantir isn't just growing fast, but it's growing in a way that's sustainable.
So this isn't just hype. There's actually some real substance behind this whole AI revolution.
There's definitely some substance there, but we also have to be careful about getting swept away by the excitement. These numbers are really impressive, but it's still early days for this type of AI technology.
So where do we go from here? What are the next layers that we need to sort of peel back in this deep dive?
Well, we've talked a lot about, the potential, but what about the potential challenges? Could Palantir's close ties to governments, particularly for defense contracts, actually be a double-edged sword?
Oh, that's an interesting point. Could you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah. So government contracts can provide a steady stream of revenue, which is great for stability. But if they rely too heavily on those contracts, they can become vulnerable. If government priorities shift or if regulations change.
Right.
It also raises the question of whether they can actually succeed in the wider commercial market.
That's true because, Microsoft's dominance came from creating products that everyday people use, not just specialized tools for governments and big corporations.
Exactly.
So maybe this whole Windows of the AI revolution analogy isn't quite as perfect as it might seem at first glance.
We need to dig a little deeper.
Yeah, it sounds like we need to unpack this whole government contract thing a little bit more.
Yeah.
Can you maybe walk us through some of the potential upsides and downsides of that approach?
Well, on the one hand, having those strong relationships with governments can really give Palantir a competitive edge.
Right.
They get access to sensitive data and projects that other companies just can't touch.
Okay.
And, that can lead to some pretty lucrative contracts.
Yeah.
And really establish them as kind of a trusted partner.
Gotcha. So what about the flip side? Could that focus on government work actually limit their growth in other areas?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
While government work can be really profitable, it can also be pretty limiting.
Oh.
Government procurement processes are notoriously slow and bureaucratic.
Right.
And then there's always the risk of political winds changing, which could impact those contracts.
Yeah, that's true.
Plus, focusing on government needs might actually distract them from developing products that have a broader appeal in the commercial market.
So sort of a balancing act.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
They've got to find that sweet spot, where they can leverage their government expertise,
Right.
but also expand their reach into other sectors.
So it's like a tightrope walk.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about the potential risks tied to government contracts. But what about competition?
Yeah.
Are there other companies out there that could challenge Palantir's dominance in this AI space?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, the AI landscape is incredibly dynamic.
Right.
There are new companies and new technologies emerging all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you've got the established tech giants like Google and Microsoft who are pouring billions of dollars into AI research and development.
Right.
And then you have all these smaller, more agile startups that are laser focused on specific niches.
So it's not like a guaranteed win for Palantir.
No, not at all.
They really have to fight to stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly. They can't afford to rest on their laurels.
Yeah.
They have to constantly innovate and adapt to new market trends.
Right.
Maybe even acquire some strategic companies to fill in the gaps in their offerings.
So for our listener who's trying to make sense of all of this, should they be rushing to buy Palantir stock based on that impressive growth that we talked about?
Mm-hmm.
Or should they be hitting the brakes and taking a more cautious approach?
Well, I mean, that's a decision that each individual listener has to make based on, their own risk tolerance and their own investment goals.
Sure.
But what we can offer is a framework for thinking about it.
Okay.
Palantir has shown that they have incredible potential, but they're also facing some very real challenges.
Yeah.
The AI landscape is evolving incredibly rapidly, and there are no guarantees of success, even for a company as strong as Palantir.
So for our listener who wants to kind of stay informed and, make those informed decisions,
right?
Where do they go from here? Where should they go to learn more about Palantir and their competitors and this whole broader AI landscape?
Well, I think a great starting point is to look beyond just the financial headlines.
Okay.
Really dig deeper into Palantir's business model, their product offerings,
right,
and the specific industries that they're targeting.
Okay.
Compare their strengths and weaknesses to those of their competitors.
Yeah. It sounds like you really have to do your homework.
Absolutely.
You can't just blindly follow the hype, but you also don't want to be,
right,
totally scared off by the potential risks.
Yeah.
Really got to understand what Palantir does and who they're up against and what this whole future of AI might look like.
Exactly. And I think, it's important to remember that this isn't just about Palantir.
Right.
The whole field of AI is, it's just full of possibilities and challenges and unknowns.
So it's like we've zoomed in on one particular star in this vast galaxy.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
We've learned a lot about that one star, but now we need to kind of zoom back out and see,
right,
how it all fits within the larger constellation.
Yeah, and within that universe, there's so many other stars out there.
Right.
Some of which might be even brighter than Palantir.
This has been such an interesting deep dive for me.
Yeah, me too.
We started with a simple question. Could Palantir become a $1 trillion company?
Right.
And we ended up exploring so much more.
Yeah, we did.
The potential of AI, the risks of government contracts.
Yeah.
The competitive landscape.
Sure.
And really just the importance of informed decision-making.
Absolutely.
And it's not over, this is really just the beginning of the conversation.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The AI landscape is constantly evolving.
Right.
There's going to be new developments, new players, new challenges emerging all the time.
It's not a static picture. It's very dynamic.
Very much so.
So it's crucial to stay curious, keep learning and asking those tough questions.
Yeah, don't just accept things at face value.
So for our listener, what's the one thing you really want them to take away from our deep dive into this world of Palantir and the future of AI?
I think the biggest takeaway is don't be afraid to challenge those assumptions.
Okay.
The world of technology and AI especially is, full of hype and speculation.
Right.
But underneath all that, there's a lot of substance, a lot of complexity, a lot of potential for both good and bad. And by engaging with these topics thoughtfully, critically, and with a healthy dose of skepticism, I think we can all help to make sure that AI is developed and used responsibly.
That's a great point.
For the benefit of everyone.
That's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to our listener, we hope you found this as thought-provoking as we did.
Yeah.
Keep those questions coming, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into a topic that's shaping our world. Until then, stay curious.